Michigan is on an all-time football recruiting heater right now, and it's no coincidence it came right after the House settlement, which made it legal to pay players. Just like it's no coincidence the Big Ten's won the last two natties after it became legal to pay players. We'll get into that and more here on the season premiere, number 9 of Michigan Podcast, next.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Gets caught.
Hey, they said you can't beat Ohio State. Now what?
Brady gets terrific. Throws it, and a touchdown, Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him, and a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle, caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue, I'm Steve Deace, and welcome to season number 9. It's the kickoff, the season premiere of season number 9. Number 9, right here on Michigan Podcast. And let's get started kind of at a meta level. So, Michigan football fans, we do this thing like every recruiting year, right? And I will admit, man, I get a little nervous sometimes too. Although if you know me, you know it doesn't take much to get me nervous. All right, so February, March, April, where's the commitments at? Get to April. I'm usually okay. We get to May, then I'm like, where's the football recruits at? All right, I start to panic, right? Then June rolls around, Michigan goes on a roll, gets things recalibrated, and ends up usually with a solid to great class, somewhere in there, all right? Now, what we've seen this June that just concluded is historic. The level run that Michigan was on, Michigan was consensus 32 in the football recruiting class rankings of 2026. And is sitting right now with a consensus top 10 class. How did they do it? Well, some of it is systemic, right? Michigan loves to do official visits in June. Weather in Michigan is perfect, right? We're post-spring, before the fall. Coaches can put all their attentions and affections upon said recruits. So part of that is the timing. But that timing's been there in the past, too. And Michigan has not gone on a run. You're beating South Carolina for the top defensive end on its board when his dad is the assistant strength and conditioning coach. We're not used to going down south and plucking guys from them like this. So this is the same run Michigan gets on this time of year every cycle, but this run is not like the runs of the other cycles. What's changed? No coincidence, it's the House settlement. And I think that what you're seeing now is Michigan is comfortable talking actual numbers with guys. And what their value is, and then what added value they can bring to that with collectives and NIL via Michigan's, unprecedented within public universities, alumni network and alumni base. And I don't think it's any coincidence that that's right around the time that Michigan not just took off like it always does, but really took off. And you're watching the fulfillment of what I warned about for several years of these to our southern schools. be very, very careful. If the Big Ten ever gets to the point, these Big Ten schools, I mean, Michigan has the largest alumni body in the world. And in a given year, if it's not Michigan, they're number 2 and Penn State is number 1. Ohio State is sitting in the largest television market in America that doesn't have an NFL, NBA, or Major League Baseball team. And all of that Ohio State alumni money and all that cash, it's not being competed with by pro sports leagues except for the NHL. That's still kind of a niche. And so they can invest all of those dollars now and above board. Why not just, I know Michigan fans, well, they gave them cars and tattoos. Who gives a rip about crap like that? I'm talking like real money now. And it's all above board. Iowa goes out there and outbids several major schools for the top FCS quarterback in the transfer portal market. Which again, Iowa, I know it's a small state, but another land-grant university, massive law school, massive medical school, nationally respected, which means a lot of wealthy alumni. Because I think we all know Iowa probably had to overpay for that kid given its offensive performance of the last decade. So it's not just that Iowa outbid other schools. Iowa had to outbid its history. Okay? So, I mean, you look at the cash money Oregon is sitting on with Phil Knight and Nike. You're watching a recalibration of things here now. And now you're watching a consistent ability to pull kids that would have gone to many of these other Southern schools. But now it's not just proximity to home and they're getting paid, but that objection of getting paid is now taken off the table because it's all above the table. That's why it's also not a coincidence the last 2 national champions are Michigan and Ohio State. Michigan now was able to pay guys that were going to be second and third day draft picks to get them to come back to school, pay them competitively with what they would have gotten in the NFL for being a third to 7th round draft pick. Ohio State was able to pluck, a starting offensive lineman, a 5-star All-American safety, and a 5-star, maybe this year's starting quarterback from Alabama. Well, I know Nick Saban left, but even if that had happened 3 years ago, Ohio State does not get those kids. Because Alabama is just putting on all the stops to pay whatever it takes to grab them. But here's the thing. This is culturally a major shift. And it's because the money in the market that was being set down south by boosters who are what we would call regionally wealthy in my full-time vocation. Regionally wealthy. Guys that own restaurants, car lots, wealthier than you and me, but regionally wealthy. So millions. We're now talking about guys, though, with these northern land-grant schools like Michigan, Ohio State, these AAU schools in the north. We're now talking about billions. I mean, the research dollars schools like Michigan are bringing in make these Bubba boosters in the south, look like they're just hosting swap meets. And now this stuff is unleashed. So here we go. And you're watching a massive paradigm shift, which is why I think what you're also going to see, if this new College Sports Commission shows that it has any teeth whatsoever, and I remain dubious that that'll be the case. But if it becomes any kind of legitimate enforcement arm, I think you're going to see now the SEC schools clamoring for some kind of booster control, knowing that they won't obey it anyway, and then maybe the Big Ten schools will go back to foolishly doing so they can go back to setting a black market and getting the cornering of the players. That'll be the next step here. But I don't know that you're going to see Big Ten schools go back to that. Now that they're paying guys, the stigma's kind of gone, right? Michigan kind of fought NIL the first few years and had really subpar recruiting classes as a result. Then eventually gave up the ghost, and now Michigan's just like the profligate spender in college football. Okay? We will not be outbid. All right? I think the stigma now, the stinginess and snottiness stigma of paying players, that maiden has been broken now. And I think they've got a taste for it now. So, to our friends down south, good luck. Folks, the best way to support us here at Michigan Podcast is to do so via our Patreon page, patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. We are posting picks there year round, whether it's Major League Baseball, whether it's college basketball, whether it's the NFL, and of course, college football. Our win total best bets, you would have gotten those, for example, before the market moved. About half the books in the last few days moved on Texas under 10.5 down to 9.5. If you were following us on Patreon when we posted that, you would have gotten that before that number moved, right? So we give you you all kinds of great data and picks, PGA major picks as well. We've cashed 8 of the last 11 majors in professional golf. So if you want to support us on our Patreon page, it's just $10 a month there at patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. That's right, just $10 a month. Patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. That's patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. And thank you so very much if you're one of our supporters already. Yes, a tradition unlike any other. It is good to hear that sounder again as we kick off season number 9 of Michigan Podcast. And we are joined by perhaps the world's one and only semi-reasonable bucknut, our good friend Mark Rogers. Check out his channel on YouTube. The voice of college football covers the greatest sport in the land that they're actively trying to ruin year-round, with lots of great information, particularly this time of year when we get to season win totals. And I'm going to get to my best bets on those here in a moment, Mark. But before we do, I want to get your take on what I led off with the program a bit ago. In particular, the broader angle, which is it's absolutely no coincidence that Michigan and Ohio State, 2 Big Ten teams, have won the last 2 national championships. You probably have to go back to the 60s. Last time the Big Ten won consecutive national championships. So we're talking pre-population migration to the Sun Belt and all of that stuff. We're actually going through the generation after the population of the Rust Belt, right? After immigration a lot of immigration from Europe at the beginning of the 20th century. So you'd have to go back to well before you and I were born, and we've been on this planet for a half a century now apiece, right? The last time the Big Ten won 2 natties in a row. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it completely coincides with when you could pay players above board 1-to-1 like they've been doing below board down at the SEC pretty much all of our lifetimes. It's funny. I'm listening to these shows in the off season, and they're like rubbing the stubble on their chins, and they're scratching their heads, Mark, and they're trying to figure out how it's possible. The SEC has gone 2 years in a row without winning a natty, and now there's a lot of talk that maybe Penn State will be the Big Ten team that does it this year, and how can that be? And it's just pretty obvious, man. Well, everybody's paying guys now, so you all lost the biggest advantage that you actually had.
Well, to extend on your point, I think you started to hit on it in regards to any kind of confirmation or substantial evidence. And it's not one dominant team coming out of the Big Ten. This is Michigan, then Ohio State, and then possibly Penn State, who made it, of course, within one play of a national championship game. So we're talking about 3 elites from the same conference.
And remember, Oregon was the only undefeated team during the regular season, Mark.
There you go.
And Oregon was the only team that finished with 1 loss last season in all of college football. So keep that in mind, too. Another Big Ten team. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good point there. And though I tend to come to these realizations maybe a little bit slower because I tend to be reasonable, even though I've downgraded to semi-reasonable. I think that the national championship must have done that. So I am not quite there with you, although I generally concede that the SEC paid players. The SEC has obviously been more underhanded and gone to the nth degree to win football games and championships, top to bottom, almost the entire conference outside of Nashville, Tennessee, for decades and decades, as opposed to what the Big Ten has done. And we are not, or at least I am not, dismissing the Big Ten from doing any level of cheating on any front at any time, but has generally played more within the rules. I know that you have made this direct correlation. I'm a little bit slower to come to that conclusion, but I think the evidence is strongly on your side.
Let's test my hypothesis for a second. All right. Odds that Michigan gets all those guys who would have been 2nd or 3rd day draft picks to return and pass up high 6-figure, low 7-figure deals in the NFL without the NIL era. I'm going to tell you what the odds are. Remote, pretty low. Those are the odds. All right. Number 2, odds Ohio State, even as mighty as their recruiting chops have been my whole lifetime. I don't care if Nick Saban's leaving or not. The odds you guys raid their roster for a 5-star safety and a 5-star quarterback without NIL. Because we both know Alabama would have paid them anything they wanted under the table to keep them for a new head coach. You're going to have to outbid somebody. All right? I think that anecdotally kind of proves my point right there, those 2 instances.
And their All-American center went to Ohio State
there you go.
from Alabama.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think,
again,
you know,
I tend to stay in the more balanced ground until I see more proof. That's like debating the Big Ten and the SEC on the field right now. I still tend to believe that the SEC is the stronger conference, top to
I agree,
bottom.
it's stronger, top to bottom. I agree. Yeah.
But that doesn't
stronger top to bottom.
necessarily matter depending on the debate. I don't.
But
think
who cares who's the better team in the Mayo Bowl?
the
Nobody
place.
cares, right? Nobody cares. So here's the thing that, and I'm going to tell you right now, what's going to happen is the SEC schools with this new College Sports Commission, if it passes its initial threshold muster here in the first couple of years and shows it has any teeth at all, they're going to lobby hard, man, for some kind of lobbyist regulation, because we are the land grant research institutions. Whatever Bubba, this love sponge car dealer, has been paying Auburn's defensive line under the table since Tracy Rocker, okay? Whatever he's been paying, you know, with $5,000 handshakes and maybe a couple $100,000 here or there, the amount of research dollars that our institutions in the Big Ten take in, Mark, make Bubba the Love Sponge car lots, okay, look like a friggin' flea market in Botswana, all right? And you're going to start unleashing that massive alumni base. Like, who just calls the founder of Oracle out of the bullpen? A Big Ten school like Michigan does. You guys are sitting there in one of the largest television markets to have a college team that doesn't have one of the big 3 pro sports teams, all that corporate money sitting there, all that alumni base sitting there, and no one's being lobbied to buy skyboxes for MLB, NFL, and NBA sitting there in Columbus, Ohio, right? Penn State, if Michigan doesn't have the largest alumni body in the world, Penn State does in a given year. Oregon sitting there with Phil Knight still alive, playing Daddy Warbucks to them. These are funding streams that, for all of the cowboy hat wearing booster stereotypes that they've had down there for the last 3 decades, that stuff looks like a flea market compared to the amount of money in these northern schools. And now there's no shame in spending it. And I think you're watching the consequences of this come forward right in real time in broad daylight now.
Yeah, there's a guy that used to come on our platform on a regular basis, and to quote him, and it correlates with what you're saying, the SEC works in millions with an M and the Big Ten in billions with a B. And this was a few years ago, and he said if ever the Big Ten would stoop to the SEC's level, or we would arrive at a place in college football where that money could be released and distributed to the athletics and the football in particular, then you've got a whole different board game.
Speaking of board games, let's get to my win total best bets. So I haven't announced these yet on the show. We did it first for our supporters over on Patreon. I'm doing these later than ever before, even though they're coming out earlier than ever before. We used to have to wait till Memorial Day weekend, and that's when I'd put them out. Now they come out in by Valentine's Day. Dude, we've got another transfer portal window, and to me now, it used to be get in on these as early as you can. Now I think you should do them as late as you can. All right, and try to gather as much information as you possibly can. So, all time documented since I've been doing these on the show, going back to 2019. I'm 42, 20, and 1 all time. That is 67%. That's almost as good as Mark Rogers is with his game day point spread picks. I'm almost that good. All right, because his game day point spread picks are pretty phenomenal. All right, let's take these one by one. All right, I've got 9 best bets win totals for this year. My first, I'm going to take Air Force over 5.5. Essentially, we're just asking them with a pretty mediocre schedule to get to a bowl game. I know they started off terribly last year, really young offense. I love the way they closed. I think they won 4 of their last 5, or maybe the last 4 in a row. I'm kind of betting here on Troy Calhoun's track record as a head coach there at Air Force as well. And so I'm going to take the Falcons to at least get to bowl eligibility over 5.5. That's one of my win total best bets. Your thoughts, Mark?
So it was my attempt this morning, I didn't get around to it, to go back and check on my response to your win totals in previous years, because I would love to see, because I think when I agree with your win totals and so forth, then we probably hike this percentage up to like 85%.
At that point, just go ahead and put your mortgage on this, is what you're saying. Just bet your mortgage at that point.
42 and 20, though, that is pretty ridiculous. Yeah. I got to say that is something special. So I am, in my spare time, if that actually exists, I am going to go back and check on that, and I will report back to where I've missed it and when I've agreed and we've pulled through together on those, because, I was never into the win totals. You got me into the win totals, and I've done my own the last few seasons. So when it comes to the group of five, I got to say, Steve, if it's a Thursday night and nobody's playing, yeah, I'll watch some group of five football. I don't stay in touch with the group of five. We have had Troy Calhoun on our show 3 or 4 times. And yes, his track record is sterling, and they're coming off a down season. And so I would tend to go there. I will have much to say about all of your Power 5 plays, but I will take your word for Air Force over 5.5 because, again, they have been a much better program than that.
So we're doing these alphabetically, by the way. So Air Force, first letter in the alphabet A. All right, so that means we're going probably to a school with the start of the letter B next. We are Boise State. I had to look at this one 3 or 4 times, and this one was so obvious to me, I almost didn't put it on the sheet thinking, am I being punked? I defy anybody who has a rudimentary knowledge of the English language and is reading at least a 3rd grade level to go look at the Boise State schedule and find me 3 losses.
And that's why, Steve, I will chime in on this one, even though they're a group of 5, they have elevated themselves over the last 25 years to a status unique to their level of play, of course. This is rated to be the best offensive line in the Mountain West Conference. They have 99 career starts coming back along the offensive line, a veteran quarterback in Matson Maddox. They have 2 of those offensive line starters have NFL prospectus on their resumes. They go to Notre Dame. You would consider that to be, although it was proven otherwise last year, an automatic loss. Then after that, they've got UNLV at home, supposed to be the 2nd best team in the conference, most likely. San Jose State is also given a lot of consideration in preseason polls. No San Jose State's on the schedule. So they have a favorable situation with the likely 2 other best teams in the conference. Like you, Boise State, you can almost pencil them in for 10 wins, regardless of how difficult the schedule is. But it looks to be a favorable conference schedule. So I'm going with you on that one.
All right, next I'm going to go with an under here. I'm just going to play history with UConn under 7.5. Now, I was big on UConn last year. I had them getting to bowl eligibility in my preview a year ago. But when I look at their schedule, their returning personnel, I think you're asking a lot. It's Taquan Roberson. We saw him in a brief few glimpses at quarterback at Penn State, and there's a reason why they were a brief few glimpses. I like Skylar Bell. Michigan really liked him. I think Michigan is the school that the head coach down there or over there was complaining about tampering with his kids earlier this year. But to me, I look at their schedule, and if everything goes right, 8-4, I think, is the best possible record. So based on that, and then the track record of UConn, I'm going under 7.5. Best bet.
I am a Jim Mora fan, though. He's done wonders there with UConn, so I am a bit of a Mora fan. But it has been a roller coaster, so it's been cyclical even during his short time there, up and down, up and down, up and down. And, of course, they are coming off a strong season, so I would tend to agree with there being an overreaction that he has yet to really build a program. I think he works well with the personnel that he has, but his recruiting in no way shows that they should be ascending to that degree.
Our first Power 4 best bet win total, I'm going to go Duke over 6.5. And the reason why I like Duke to not have regression after last year's first-year breakthrough under new coach Manny Diaz, it's where they're strong. All right, David Cutcliffe did a great job at Duke. If you look at their history of football, it's rather underwhelming. The 2 most recent success stories they've had there with any consistency at all, a couple of years under Steve Spurrier in the late 80s before he went to Florida, and then the David Cutcliffe era. But both of those things have something in common, right? Guys who are very offensively innovative, could kind of scheme things up in a league that isn't really, on an annual basis, have a lot of depth in terms of strength in the trenches. So you can draw some stuff up in the dirt, with some of those Frisbee catching dogs and get to 6 or 7 wins. In this case, I think next to Clemson and Miami, Duke has the best combined offensive and especially defensive lines in the ACC. I think they have a huge upgraded quarterback too in Darius Mensah, right? Who could have gone to probably about 40 schools. So if he's going to Duke, That tells you they really ponied up and they're really serious about winning, because you don't just if you're Mensa, he was probably the top quarterback not named John Mateer in the portal this last year. He had his options. So if you're going there, that tells me that Duke is serious about football on an institutional level. I love the way they're built from the inside out. We've really never said anything like that about Duke football before. Manny Diaz is a defensive coordinator, except when he's at Penn State coordinating against Michigan, has been really good, really good. All right, so I love Duke over 6.5. I think they pull an early kind of upset against Illinois at home there in Raleigh-Durham. I think they're being hugely slept on. And in fact, it would not shock me if they were actually the opponent of Clemson in the ACC championship game.
Manny Diaz is a better head coach than most people give him credit for. No, he did no wonders at Miami, but he basically turned in the same Miami performance as everyone else has over the last 20 years. And as you mentioned, this is an experienced team. 3 starters back along that defensive front with 43 sacks last season. Mensa hit on 22 TDs, 6 picks. A more polished passer than what they had with Malik Murphy last year, and a runner. He brings the running element to the position as well. The only thing that really scares me here is that Duke was 6-1 in one-score games last year. That
Yep, I hear you.
Tends to move.
I looked
back
at that too.
To the other side there. But the schedule: no Miami, no SMU. Now they need to split early. I'm looking at the Illinois game like you are, but then they go to Tulane the next week. And so get a split there. And I'm looking at 5-4 entering the final stretch of the season, where they've got Virginia at UNC and Wake Forest. They should be able to win 2 out of 3 there to get to 7. I actually, in my predictions, have Duke at 8-4, comfortably over.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I looked at the one-score game thing. This is why I emphasize being strong inside out. I'm less concerned about that if you're strong at the line of scrimmage, as opposed to if we're winning a bunch of shootouts and pulling kind of games out. But that is still a concern in terms of regression in the mean. You're right about that. All right, I warned you last time we talked on your show. I was looking at this. So here we go. I'm going Ohio State under 10.5. To me, this was a way better coaching staff and a way better roster last year with an easier schedule, and it still lost 2 games. To me, you're playing a lot tougher schedule. I think there are 4 legitimately losable games. Texas at home, at Illinois, at Michigan, Penn State at home. So we're going to play with an more inexperienced quarterback, an offensive coordinator that you already passed over once and went and got an upgrade for Chip Kelly, a defensive coordinator, let me just say as a Lions fan, I know a lot about. And now I have to believe he's learned some things, and Ryan Day wouldn't have hired him if he's not, evolved somewhat. I think that's still, at the very least, a discernible downgrade from what they had there before. You look at the overall youth on the roster, a tougher schedule. They had a better roster last year, a more advantageous schedule. They lost 2 games last year. To me, it's just that simple. Too much turnover, too many losable games. I just need Ohio State to go 10-2, and I win that bet. And I think they're going to probably split those 4 games.
My initial response to the schedule was 9-3, lose to Texas, lose 2 Big Ten games between Michigan, Penn State, Illinois, and also a sneaky trip out to Husky Stadium in Seattle.
Forgot about that. Yeah.
Difficult. Yes, they've got that to contend with as well. Here's a stat for you, Steve. I love to throw out the Ohio State superlatives as an elite program. And for your Michigan viewers who may only watch this team play once a year and think that they suck because they've lost 4 consecutive years and they don't see them play otherwise, this program is lost. Take out Luke Fickell. We'll go Urban Meyer, Ryan Day, and of course back to Jim Tressel. 20 regular season games in 20 years. They go 11-1. That's the norm. That's the mean. 11-1. 20 regular season losses in 20 years. That's crazy. So to pick them to go, and if they don't need to go under 10-2 for you to win the bet and beyond, but that hasn't happened since 2004. Now, it's usually a bugaboo with Ohio State teams recently to come into a season a little shaky along the offensive line, and they're pretty fortified there. They're in better shape there than they have been. I just could not. I released my prediction the other day, and I could not pull the trigger on this team going 9-3, even though I saw it on the schedule. I still think they have the best roster in the conference. And but that still leaves you some room. I've got Ohio State at 10-2.
I'm going to go Oklahoma for my next best bet. I did this last year. I didn't quite have the guts to make Billy Napier an over bet on my win totals, but one of my top 25 predictions in the crystal ball was that Billy Napier would actually survive. I think Brent Venables is going to survive. I think he's going to do better than over 6.5 wins. It's essentially the same schedule they played last year in reverse. All right. So, and it kind of balances out. All right. The hard teams they got at home, like Alabama, they have to go play them on the road. So but the teams they had to play, all those road games they had to play, now they get them at home. Like they get Auburn at home early in the year. So it's the same. It's the same schedule as last year with a Michigan in the non-conference. All right. But I also think they're getting Michigan at a good time. Freshman quarterback on the road, prime time. That's an unfamiliar setting. Michigan's never played a game in Norman, Oklahoma. They played Oklahoma one time. It was an Orange Bowl in 1975. All right. So I think that's a tough spot for Michigan, in fact. So it's the same schedule as last year. They can't possibly be as bad on the offensive line as they were last year. Like that would be like go to FCS. Why are you even in Division I if they were worse? All right. All the injuries they had at wide receiver last year. I mean, literally, you were getting calls asking, hey, man, you have any eligibility left? They were out. They had nothing. That can't possibly happen 2 years in a row. I think there's a massive upgrade at quarterback. And even if you look at John Mateer's numbers and realize they were way inflated by the caliber of competition, you would be right about that. Okay. But that would still mean that his median is dramatically better than what they had at quarterback a year ago. New OC coming in as well with John Mateer, so there's system familiarity. To me, I just look at, they had the same, kind of like Ohio State. Same schedule in reverse, but instead of Ohio State, I think they're better on their roster and coaching staff. So I'm going to go Oklahoma over 6.5. If for no other reason, the rest of my life, I may never get a win total of Oklahoma at 6 or 6.5 for the rest of my life. I'm going to take advantage of it.
Well, Steve, I'm going to let you know what I don't like about this play, and it has everything to do with the schedule. So going into the first season in the SEC between Oklahoma and Texas, I posted a video because I looked at the two schedules and thought, what does the SEC have against Oklahoma? We're looking at, these were the numbers going into 2024, that Texas played an aggregate 35% winning percentage in the SEC, and Oklahoma's was 65%, the teams they had to play. And you know what? The games in 2024 bared that out almost to a T. So now we play the same schedule for Texas and Oklahoma. So we're looking at an SEC schedule that Oklahoma plays of 40-24. It's a difficult schedule again. And Texas, on the flip side, plays no one for an SEC schedule. Okay. This offensive line, to your point, gave up 50 sacks last year. They've got 4 transfer portal players coming in, and they've got a really respected offensive line coach in Bill Biedenbaugh. I like the quarterback change, no doubt. You did note the 2 lackluster performances against power competition last year. Jaden Ott, a real playmaker. If he's healthy, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns at Cal 2 years ago. And maybe in one of the most ludicrous injury situations I've ever seen for a unit in college football. Yeah. They lost their top 5 wide receivers early in the season last year. So they fixed that to a certain extent. Deion Burke's a really good player originally at Purdue, coming back at wide receiver. So I am right there with you. I think they're going to play through this schedule and actually win 9 games.
That's exactly what I have. And I think if they do, they're going to be in the playoff with that schedule. Let's go next. Back to the Mountain West. I'm going to go San Jose State over 7.5. Basically, they return everybody. And if you look at their schedule, you said it before, there's no Boise State. I would just look at the San Jose State schedule and tell me where there's 5 losses there. I'll give you one at Texas. All right. Tell me where the other 4 losses are coming from in that conference. Because I just didn't see it on that schedule. Even though and this might be the highest win total San Jose State's had in our lifetimes, which tells you something, I think.
Exactly. This is historically a bad football program. And over the last 15 years, aside from one season in which Mike McIntyre pulled through with 11 wins, this has been a bad football program. And they actually won the Mountain West in the COVID year. They were 5-1 or something like that. But Yeah, I don't have too much to play on this except for your bucking history, because even when the previous coach who went to Arizona got himself a job at Arizona off of what he did at San Jose State, Brent Brennan, he was only going 7-5, 7-6 there, and that was enough to get him out of there to Arizona. So I am going to opt out of the San Jose State prediction.
Next, I'm going Texas under 10.5. Now, how good is this pick? In the last 48 hours at half the books, this number's dropped to 9.5 since I posted this. Not saying that me posting a pick moved the number. What I'm saying is a bunch of sharps spent the 4th of July weekend looking over at all this with a long weekend and are like, yeah, that's too high. I have them power rated the third best team in the SEC. I mean, I think there's 5 losable games on their schedule. Texas A&M, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and I'm missing one.
They've got Florida
on the road. Yeah,
Florida
on the road.
Florida on the road.
I mean, I'm sure Arch Manning will be great. I have to wonder how he couldn't beat out a 7th round draft pick last year. And one who could not complete a pass 30, 40 yards down the field. One whose arm strength wouldn't let them throw slants in the red zone. So I think they're the most overrated team heading into the season. Doesn't mean, I still have them power rated as a top 10 team, but I don't agree with Athlons that they're the number 1 team in the country. I don't even think my power ratings don't even have them in the SEC championship game. So I'm going Texas 10.5 while that number is still available, and it's barely available right now.
Well, you were on my show last week and went through some of your comments that you just reviewed there about Texas. I got to say, I did a deep dive on Texas a few days ago. I didn't come up with weaknesses on this football team. I think this team is rock solid across both sides of the football. They picked up a kicker from Texas State who's only missed 4 kicks out of 34. I think Arch Manning's going to be an exceptional player. Man, I look at offensive line, weapons. I look at the defense. They could be one of the best in the nation. I think that this is really good. And of course, you get a loss in the first week of the season between Ohio State and Texas, but you can't take a loss for both of them. So one of them is going to win the game as well. I just think Texas, again, benefits from this SEC schedule, which it's always tough in the SEC, but they've got a middle of the schedule of Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Vandy. Now that's hardly anybody gets that kind of break. And even the stretch drive of Arkansas and Texas A&M, the final 2 games with both of those teams at home, I just think that Texas is in pretty good shape, but it is 10.5. They got to win 11 football games here. So like you, I'm just not bullish on this. I would stay far, far away from it. I have Texas going 10-2, but I am not as bullish on their misgivings as you are.
Well, they are certainly welcome to go 10-2 if they would like. That would win my bet. All right, my biggest win total best bet that I've done this year is Troy over 5.5. So Troy this is a consistently strong group of 5 program. Kind of cratered last year. New coach, quarterback got hurt. Year 2, quarterback is back. Have you looked at their defensive depth chart? Senior. Like all 11 seniors. All right. Look at the schedule. When you look at the Troy schedule here, all right? Nicholls State. At Clemson, probably a loss. Memphis at home, that's a winnable game. Buffalo on the road, that's a winnable game. And it's early enough that it's not going to be Buffalo weather. South Alabama at home, winnable game. Texas State on the road, winnable game. Louisiana Monroe on the road, they're heavily favored in that game. Louisiana, they get them at home. And the Cajuns lost quite a bit from last year. Arkansas State, they get them at home. Old Dominion, winnable game. Georgia State, get them at home. Southern Miss, winnable game. Outside of the Clemson game, tell me on this schedule what is the second game where you can sit here today and tell me definitively Texas is below, or Troy is below 40% to win that game. You won't find it on that schedule. You won't find it.
Correct.
So give me the return. What's that?
Well, I look at the schedule. I agree with that statement, but I go into conference play thinking a threesome of Clemson, Memphis, Buffalo in consecutive weeks is pretty difficult for a Troy football team. That looks like a difficult run.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but they play something like that every single year because that's how you make money in the group of 5. To me, you look at the conference schedule, they get the toughest teams in that league heading into the year are Arkansas State and Louisiana. And they don't play, and they get them both at home. And James Madison, they don't play them. So I struggled to find a game where I could sit here after the Clemson game and say they're a touchdown or more underdog. I could make a case they could be favored like in the rest of their games. If they're favored by 1 point or 2 against Memphis at home, are you stunned by that? I wouldn't be stunned by that. They're probably a 4 or 5 point underdog, but this is the biggest win total best bet that I've made this offseason is this one right here.
Okay. If they leave September at 2-2, you're in great shape. Yeah.
Any final thoughts, brother, before we let you go?
Again, this is out of my lane. I stay away from the Troys of the world. I will see them in their bowl game. If they eclipse your 5.5, get to 6, that's the game I will watch Troy play football. I catch the group of 5 in week 0, then I catch up with them on Wednesday nights and so forth. And then, of course, we catch up in bowl play. Can't miss a bowl game. But otherwise, I like the plays. I would love to be able to point my finger in your face, Steve, and say, you missed it on that one for sure, but you're just too damn good at this. And I typically agree. And again, I'm going to report back after I find your previous years and my appearances to see how those lined up.
All right, good to see you, brother, as always. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Steve.
You bet. This week's X-Poll results, we asked you, Michigan's preseason win total for the 2025 college football season currently stands at 8.5 according to odds makers. Are you on the over or under? Well, now, I think that's a pretty resounding amount of confidence. 84% of you said over, 16% of you said under. Which brings me to my feedback of the week as we launch a new season here. I just want to say, I love being hated by my enemies in all things. And Michigander responds, I love being hated more than being liked because being hated means you're winning. Amen. What's Clayton Sayfie over the Wolverines say? They don't boo nobodies. Right on. I live for your hate. I love it because I know that means that I've earned it. And I've usually earned it by stomping your butt, curb stomping you, in fact. So give me all that hate. Love it. That'll do it for the opening salvo of season number 9 here of Michigan Podcast. Don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, share, 5-star review. Please also help us to find more Michigan fans just like you. Reply here in the comments as well. Don't forget to follow us on X in between episodes at Michigan Podcast on X. That's at Michigan Podcast on X. Until the next time, I'm Steve Deace. Go Blue.